Thank you for being patient. It is quite the task. I travel for a living. That's what I do, is drive these roads. And so they can be quite unpredictable. And coming from downtown Naples to try to get here, you check at night, it doesn't matter. GPS tells you 15 minutes. You plug it in on your way here to make sure the best route, and it tells you 25 minutes. So, right. And I know that, but I do thank you everyone for being patient. My name is Chris Williams. I am the author and creator of Balance University. We are a fall prevention program. However, it doesn't stop there. We could have called this Osteoporosis University, Osteopenia University. We could have given this just a standard exercise class. We could have called it Exercise University. But falls are such a big deal, especially as we age. And I want you to know, falling is not a natural part of aging. It's not. It's not something to be accepted and just tolerate. We're going to teach you today, we're going to talk about something you've probably not learned about falling and fall prevention this way. The way Dr. Khan and I approached this topic was in a very specific way. I spend most of my days researching, combing the internet, through medical journals, medical articles. My degree is in dietetics, so I'm comfortable reading a lot of that language. As you can tell, I was born and raised in New Jersey. Not hardly. So my father was in the military for 22 years. And so we settled in Orange, Texas, and that's where I was mostly raised the majority of my life. I played high school college football in Texas, college football in Louisiana, a big university there. And so I had a passion for exercise and staying fit. Happy to say, the same size pants I wore in high school, I can still wear them today. So I've taken, we watch what we do. We all find our passions. But moving to Naples, all right, I quickly became aware of the need for fall prevention, all right. My wife is in the medical field. Believe it or not, I have a 25-year-old daughter. She's a nurse at Lee Memorial. My brother is a nurse. My aunt is a therapist. My cousin is a therapist. Let me tell you right now, be your own advocate, okay? Now, this bell you hear is going off every 11 seconds, right? It's kind of annoying, isn't it? A little bit. It's bothering me. So, I do that to make a point, all right? And the point is simply this. Every 11 seconds, an older adult is treated in the ER for a fall-related injury, and that number is reducing. Every 19, this is an old PowerPoint. We've had trouble getting these PowerPoints to display, mostly security issues. So I tweaked the PowerPoint, and I sent it over to Allison yesterday, and I was just hoping we were able to get it up. We're good. But this is no longer 19, it's now 18. Every 18 minutes, an older adult dies from a fall-related injury in the United States. All right, we're going to talk about that. Again, the way we approach this is going to be very unique and very different than any other way that you've heard. All right, we self-published in May of 2018. Great momentum going into 2020. That was going to be our big year. Established a lot of relationships. Anybody remember what happened in March of 2020? Right? All right, so fast forward. Setting up for another great year this year. We had everything going on Fort Myers Beach. I've been giving lectures for 3 years. We set up classes. Does anybody remember what happened to Fort Myers Beach? So, as a small business owner, right, we've had challenges, but we've also had some other challenges as well. So, we're going to tell you, getting the word out has been a little bit challenging, but glad you're here, because what you're going to learn you can take with you, and you can tell others, you can tell loved ones, hopefully influence and motivate. What I want to do now is, most people do not realize their balance is bad until they fall. And that's when folks want to try and do something. I'm considered a subject matter expert with Florida Gulf Coast University. I teach this course there through their continuing education department. One of the topics that's come up, and this is just a survey for me for a blog post, no names are going to be mentioned, but this week I've been talking to people, and I've just taken a show of hands. You don't have to, I'm not here to try and embarrass anyone. How many of you have ever fallen in a parking lot? None. Okay. So quite a few falls happen in parking lots. Does anyone know where the majority of falls occur? At home. At home. In your bathroom, right? So let's find out. Let's find out how your balance is. Now, you don't have to do this if you don't want to, right? But what I want to do is let's just kind of get an idea of where your balance is at. So if you would like, let me have you stand, and I'm going to have you move behind your chair. All right. And this cool guy is one of my sons. I have 4 children, believe it or not. He's in his last semester at FSU, so I'm going to need everyone to pray really hard. We're almost there. So what we're going to do is we're going to stand with our feet hip width apart. Okay, I want you close enough to your chair that your hands can be on the chair. All right, we're going to talk about this. There's 3 systems we're going to use. We're going to use the vestibular system, right? That's our eyes and our ears. We're going to use our proprioceptors. That's those nerve endings at the end of our nerves in our epidermis, in our skin, run throughout our body. We're also going to use mechanoreceptors. These are nerve endings at the bottom of our feet that detect pressure. So if I'm leaning this way, these mechanoreceptors are detecting pressure. They're going to send a signal to my brain and say, hey, listen, pal, you better get the other way before you cross the point of no return. As we age, those synapses get further apart, right? You guys know the term agility. What's the difference between watching an 8-year-old stump their toe on a curb, almost fall, but they have that quickness to get their foot up, versus an 80-year-old, right? Have you ever noticed or seen that difference or thought about that? Keep that in mind. Feet hip width apart, hand on the chair, chest up, chin up. I want you to close your eyes. You're going to hold this position for 15 seconds. If you feel comfortable and confident, you do not have to do this. You can raise your hands just an inch or so above the chair. I want everyone to be safe. If you feel comfortable, go ahead and lift your hands and just hold that position. I want you to feel the signals. What are your feet telling you? What does your body positioning tell you? And 3, 2, 1, and time. Okay, now we're going to move our feet as close together as we can get them. As close together. Same thing, same verbal cues. Eyes closed, hands on the chair. Get your bearings. If you feel comfortable and confident, I want you to raise those hands up. Now, if you feel like you're swaying like a tree in a wind, it's okay to use one hand, maybe your fingers. If you need a little help, that's okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and time. Good, very good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to stand on one leg. There is a process to this. There was a study just published. This is on my YouTube channel. I actually found this when it came out. We posted this on our YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube, type in Emeritus Health, you'll find a vast trove of information. We've covered every topic you can think of when it comes to balance. Even National Lampoon's Vacation, right? Everybody's seen that at Christmas time? We've covered falls at Christmas time, New Year's, and all that kind of stuff, right? No alcohol involved on those studies and that information. What I want you to do is I want you to face this way, okay? We're going to face here. What we're going to do is we're going to shift our weight. You've got your hand on your chair, so you're going to shift your weight to your right foot. I want you to bring your left heel into the air. Eyes are open. I want you to find something in front of you and focus on it. If you feel comfortable and confident, go ahead and lift that left foot up into the air. Stay safe now. If you feel comfortable and confident, maybe you can move to 2 fingers or 1. Maybe you can take your hand all the way off the chair. Be safe. 3, 2, 1, and time. So back to what I was telling you about this research. The British Journal of Sports Medicine found that if you cannot balance on one foot, they did a study, middle-aged, all the way up through the 90s. If you cannot stand on one foot for more than 10 seconds, your life longevity is about 10 years. So one-of-a-kind study. It was about a 10-year-long study. Here's the good news, though. We can change that. That's not written in stone. You can do something about it. But you're going to have to treat this like learning a new language. How many of you have tried to learn a new language, a second language? It's hard. You have to work at it, right? Same thing with this. All right, so I want you to think about that. You're going to have to approach this like learning a new language. Let's turn and let's face the other way. Same verbal cues. Eyes open, find a focal point, shift your weight to your left foot. You're going to bring your right heel into the air. Get your bearings. If you feel comfortable, go ahead and lift that foot up into the air. If you feel comfortable and confident, you can lift your hand, maybe use one finger, whatever is suitable for you to be efficient. Be safe, be efficient. And 3, 2, 1, time. I didn't say it fast enough, I'm sorry. In your chairs. Go ahead and back in your chairs. So that gives us an indication of where our balance is. Okay? Then what we would do is stand on one leg with our eyes closed. How many of you recognized as soon as you closed your eyes, especially when you put your feet closer together, you're a little unstable? That's how important our vision is to our balance. How many of you have ever gotten motion sickness? Okay. There's a common nerve that runs from our eyes to our brain. There's a common nerve that runs from our ears to our brain. That's layman's terms, right? We have semicircular canals, in our inner ear with fluid that help us detect, are we horizontal or are we vertical, right? And our eyes visually detect that. If you've ever been in a boat or deep sea fishing in rough seas, right, the boat is rocking all over the place, so your body's going everywhere. But my eyes are fixated on the horizon, which is stable. What's happening now is you're getting mixed signals to the brain. That's motion sickness, all right? These assessments are what we do, what you just did, minus the stand on one foot with the eyes closed, because Florida Blue won't let me do that. No, they probably would, but we do this in classes, right? We do this in classes. Our instructors do this, and we do it in a very safe way. You guys saw the verbal cues, how we were lifting our heel up. We make this work for everyone. I've worked with people who are bedridden. This can work for just about anybody, all right? But the reason we do this is so that our balance is not anecdotal. We're getting actual objective evidence that we're improving, right? It's not good enough for me to hear somebody say, yeah, I'm getting better. Well, how? How are you getting better? Is it easier for you to put your socks on? Is it easier for you to put your pants on? We're going to talk about things that are uncomfortable, and I'm going to say them. Is it easier for you to go to the restroom, get on and off the toilet seat, right? These things matter. They matter. So, before every class, that's where we start. If you were to just do these assessments once a day, you would be able to improve your balance. It takes 1% of your time. There's 10,080 minutes in a week, and you only need 1% of that. So, I had this great idea of going to health fairs. And I had a great big sign. I'm all excited, and here we go. My wife, she's a radiographer, so she's wearing her scrubs. I mean, we look legit, right? We know what we're doing. And people would walk by my booth at this health fair, and they would look and think, I don't need that. There was one guy that came by, and with a cane, he had all kind of problems. I mean, it was bad. And as he's hobbling by, he looks and he goes, oh, what is this? Balance? Oh, I don't need that. And I'm thinking, this is exactly who this is for. So we go through the health fair, not much traffic. I got behind the booth, put my wife out there. She did a little better than I did. She's a lot better looking than I am, right? But again, not much traffic. So she suggested, why don't we make a sign? This is the exact sign we made. And I put it on the front of my table. The very next health fair we go to, I eyeball a lady about 15, 20 yards away, reading my sign. I'm thinking, this is great. This is going to be great, right? We just opened, first group to come in. She's reading my sign. We're set up. And then she started, measuring and lining herself up, and she was putting her bags down, and I'm thinking, she's going for it. So I made a beeline over there because all I could think is if she falls, the liability risks on that, right? Why'd you do that? Because of that guy. And so I get over there and we start talking, and wouldn't you know, as people walked by, they would try to do this. That's what you just did, right? In that assessment. And what I realized right off the bat as each person came through, they didn't realize how bad their balance was. So how do you convince someone to work on their balance that doesn't think they have a balance issue? Because you don't want to fall. If you fall, you're twice as likely to do so again within 6 months. And if you have a significant fall, break a bone, the mortality rate is about 2 years. According to Dr. Kahn, one of the physicians I work with, he'll tell you, and he said this in an interview that we did, they're gone in 3 to 6 months, right? We're talking about a broken hip, a shoulder, a femur, all right? The reason I am so passionate about what I do is because Mr. Wolf was a captain of a minesweeper in World War II in the Pacific. He also was an officer on a battleship in the Pacific. I don't know if you know, does anyone want to take a guess at what a minesweeper is made out of? Goes through, sweeps for mines? Wood. You can't take a metal ship in a minefield. I didn't realize that, right? But when you say it, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So he would get a lot of crew that, you know, had been active duty and gone through some kind of battle and, you know, have recovered but still have time left on their service. So they would a lot of times go in the minesweeper because a lot of times that minesweeper was out of harm's way. You know, it wasn't necessarily equipped with tons of weapons. But the boat was made out of wood, which made it really light. Sailors would get completely seasick because the boat's getting thrown and they would go back to their original assignments. This guy was fascinating. Attorney out of Wisconsin. He was my very first client, very first patient. This young man standing next to him is my youngest son, who is now 16. And they were exactly 90 years apart in age, both born on Christmas Day. So I was working with Mr. Wolf one day, and if I tell you we're going to do 12 repetitions, that really means like 15 to 20, 30. Basically, we're going to wear you out. You know, or make it functional, make it efficient. Well, Caleb was in preschool, and he would get out of school, and his appointment was between the time he got out and the time the babysitter could get him. Well, guess what? You got to go to work with Dad. That's how it is. Very quiet. You can see by his demeanor, not much different nowadays. He would play on his little iPad and do his little games. Well, one day I told Mr. Wolf we're going to do 12. We got to 12, and of course we were going to go to 15. Well, Caleb, unbeknownst to me, was counting the whole time, and he goes, Dad, he's done. That's 12. So Mr. Wolf looked right past me and said, young man, come sit right here by me. We're going to keep your father in check. So they became really good friends, and Mr. Wolf was a client of mine for about 3 years until one day I got a phone call. Trying to get off the toilet seat, pushed on the paper roll handle, right? And it broke. Fell between the wall and the toilet seat, fracturing a shoulder, fracturing a hip. Long story short, about 18 months later, Mr. Wolf was gone. And it was at that moment where I began searching for curriculum that I could take and implement into my everyday business. I had no intentions of writing a balance program. But as I began to research, what I found, the entry point in a lot of these programs that physical therapy clinics use, physical therapists use, a lot of these programs that people will get and use in their community centers, their starting exercise, like this is the beginning, stand on one foot. Or, my favorite, right, the DUI walk, right? Which is terrible. I have a really good friend that's a sergeant in the Collier County Sheriff's Department. I ask him all the time, you got to come up with something different. People can't do that sober, you know? So that was the starting point. And what I recognize is not very many people can do that. So what we do, our entry point is just standing in a split stance, and we're going to do some of that today, right? And there's a lot of variables we can do here. For some of us, this is a breeze. This is going to be really easy. For some of us, it's going to be challenging. We'll add a variable. Well, what's a variable? That's something to progress the exercise or make it harder, right? Like changing our body weight, right? Or moving our hands, or closing our eyes, or closing our eyes and moving our body weight. And as you work on your balance to improve it, you have to always challenge yourself. And then you'll reach a point where the exercise becomes easy, and then we introduce a new variable to introduce more challenge. Does that make sense? We're going to get into all that, okay? All right, Mr. Wolf and Caleb. Mr. Wolf passed away, unfortunately. That sent me on my journey. Now, strap in, because we're about to go on a little science talk, but it's not going to be too overwhelming. All right, we're going to water it down, make it make sense. Remember, I told you, balance is like learning a language. All right, this is going to be important. So, at my house, as I'm going through this research, I wanted to find out why our balance gets worse as we age. Right? And the good news is it's not your fault. That's the good news. The bad news is that you can do something about it, and if you don't, that's your fault. This is a Dynadisc, all right? Essentially, it's like standing on an ice cube, okay? Some of you may have seen these in physical therapy clinics. Some of you have maybe even used them. But what I did was I had my parents in my home. They were coming on vacation. I had my kids, which were teenagers at the time. I had little Caleb, which was 10, and then my wife and I, right? So we were in our 30s, and I'm supposed to say she's in her 30s. So 50, 60, 30, teenager, 10. 4 age groups. The bet, or the research, was to stand on one foot, hold your hand in the air, go down, touch your toe, and come right back up while you're standing on this. So think about a balloon. Guys, this is like a balloon that has had a lot of the air let out of it, and there's just enough air in it where if you stand on it, it doesn't touch the bottom, but it's really, really shaky, okay? So my mom, wanting to help me in my research, of course, she tries it, and it's nearly impossible, right? Now, keep in mind, she's never tried this before. It's really hard. Right? Couldn't let go, could hardly stand on it, was really shaky. So my dad comes through, I'm like, hey, Dad, I'm going to need you to do this, or Senior Master Sergeant Williams, I'm going to need you to do this. And he looks at me and he goes, that's ridiculous, I'm not getting on that thing. He turns around and walks away. So I'm like, okay, well, got my mom. And then our teenagers come in, they get on, or I'm sorry, my wife and I try it. We have a little more success. I'm able to get down to my knee, a little bit lower. Teenagers try it. They're actually able to get down to the toe, but they struggle coming up. The 10-year-old comes running in. Hey, what are y'all doing? I'm like, perfect timing, come here. He gets on it, goes down and up twice. And I'm like, get out of here, you disgust me. So there I saw actual real-life evidence of how the balance decreases, deteriorates as we age. We have a running bet now in our house, right? My kids, I've got all but, well, 2 are in their last semesters in college. I still have kids, they're friends that will come over and go, Mr. Williams, let's do the bet. I think I can do it, right? This thing has gone on through middle school, through high school, and if you do it, I'll give you $5. Well, I've only given out at this point $15. Does anyone want to guess who's won 10 of that 15? He is now banned from doing this exercise, or at least getting money from it. It's Caleb, right? So that was the real life evidence. Any questions? We're about to get to the meat and potatoes. So here's the problems. Neuromuscular efficiency and proprioception. Neuromuscular efficiency is a big fancy word to tell you how does our brain and our muscles communicate together, right? Nervous system, brain and spine. Muscular system, that's what attaches to our bones, our skeletal system, right, which gives us movement. Proprioception is an example would be standing on one foot. I'm stable, but I'm a little unstable. That is going to be key because as we continue to work on our balance and we're learning a new language, we have cells that congregate in our brain. We start to make a memory. The body starts to remember where to position itself. Eventually, you're going to get really good at standing on one foot. But what we need to do is introduce a variable so we can add more proprioception. Does that make sense? So it's kind of like a fire proprioception. If you put too much wood on a fire, what happens to the fire? It goes out. If you don't put enough wood on the fire, what happens to the fire? It goes out. That's what proprioception is, kind of how we're going to do that. Second problem, our vestibular system. Eyes and ears. Let me strongly encourage each and every one of you to get your eyes and ears checked every year. Every year you need to get your eyes and ears checked. Third problem, leg strength. This is a life indicator. leg strength is so important, and we're going to get to that. We're going to get to all these. So, Brett Favre, Cowboy killer. Unfortunately, I'm a Cowboys fan. I was a Houston Oilers fan, and then they left Houston. And the internet's not like it is today. You know, it was really hard to keep up with them, though. So anyway, I became a Cowboys fan, and I got to respect and hate Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre, and I both have a love-hate relationship. They're really good, but I'm tired of them seeing beat the Cowboys. And Tim Tebow. Now, I want you to notice where the ball placement is and where their arms are. We're going to tie football into balance. All right, neuromuscular efficiency. How many times do you think Brett Favre and Tim Tebow have thrown a football? Thousands. Maybe hundreds of thousands, maybe a million, right? From the time they were a young man, young child, till their NFL careers were finished. So when these two get ready to throw a football, do you think in their brain that as they're dropping back and they have these big 300-pound defensive linemen who have snot running out of their nose and spit coming everywhere? Trust me, I've seen it. Spit is not pleasant. Coming everywhere, running after them. Do you think they're standing there going, okay, he's 15 yards down the field. That's going to be an 18-degree angle at about 22 miles per hour. Oh, now he took a step back, changing your angle. No, right? Just throws the ball. He's thrown the ball so many times that his office staff in his brain can look and see as he gets the signals from his eyes. His office staff runs over and goes, oh, it's this switch, flips the switch, and his muscles contract in the exact right time at the right sequence that he completes that pass. He's done it so many times, he's memorized it. How many of you think about blinking or breathing? Right? It's almost like an involuntary response. That is neuromuscular efficiency. Now, side note, you notice where the ball is? Brett Favre throws the ball. His technique is from here out, like that. Tim Tebow was a great baseball player. Unfortunately, he threw the football like a baseball. So instead of going here and out, he goes here and out. And in the NFL, it's a matter of tens of seconds, right? Maybe hundreds of seconds. And so that's one of the reasons he's no longer in the NFL. Tim Tebow would have to throw the ball correctly as many times as he's thrown the ball incorrectly to fix that. That's why he played baseball. So that gives you an idea of how powerful that neuromuscular efficiency is. So when we're working in proprioception, your brain is making a memory, right? And proprioception is just stable and unstable. And you can see progressions or variables. This is a foam pad here. I don't know where my laser is. I'm not going to try. But you see the foam pad here and then the half foam roll, right? That just increases the challenge. Quick question. Is it better to practice your balance barefooted or with shoes on? Shoes. How many say barefoot? How many say shoes? Okay. So the answer is barefoot. And this is why. I know, because a lot of people think, well, I'm in my shoes all day. Why wouldn't I practice in my shoes? Well, here's the deal. As we age, typically our salaries go up. We go and we buy those great New Balance shoes or those On Cloud shoes that we're paying buku bucks for that memory foam. A lot of times there may be some dysfunction in our foot. Maybe it doesn't lie completely flat. Maybe we have different issues with our toes, hammer toes, bunions, whatever the case may be, and it changes the way our foot hits the ground. Why is it so important for our foot to hit the ground the way it was designed? So we can access all those mechanoreceptors instead of maybe 70% or 50%. We take our shoes, we take that memory foam, we take those really thick soles away, that masks some of that. Now our foot must land on the floor. Does that make sense? You guys buy that? I just made it up on the spot. You believe that? So, neuropathy affects there's about 3 million cases per year. I'm seeing it more in women nowadays, which is really strange. Usually men, we suffer from neuropathy. Neuropathy is just damage to the nerve endings right, in the bottoms of our feet, causes some tingling. That can affect how you learn or relearn how to balance, but there's ways around it, right? Gabapentin, is the best treatment for it. I've been around for a while. We tried these lights. Sometimes that works for people. I will tell you this, don't discount the power of the mind. So if someone believes it's working, I'll leave it alone, no matter what the research or science is on it. So as we begin, okay, let me explain this here. As we begin to improve our balance and work in these balance in this proprioception environments, there are cells in our brain that congregate, like when we learn a new word. The more we do that, the more cells congregate, we create a memory. When we exercise, we have a neurotropin, just think of it as a construction worker and helper, that helps build those memories. Also, the brain is malleable. So now not only do you have construction workers there, but as we exercise, the brain is changing too. In the 1950s, there was a research study done at Yale, started at Yale, and what this research was it was 2 sets of mice. And I promise you I'm not going to get off in the weeds here, but this is pretty fascinating. This is what Balance University is built on. 2 sets of mice. One group of mice were standalone. They didn't do anything with them. They just fed them, let them do their thing during the day. The other group of mice, however, had an exercise wheel, had multiple exercise wheels. They didn't incentivize the exercise though, but most of the mice would go and exercise on the wheel. Well, as you can imagine, the standards today when it comes to experiments versus in the 1950s are quite different. So what occurred was one of the researchers decided, hey, these mice running on this wheel, I'm gonna bring these home and show my kids. So he brings the mice home, brings them back, and all the researchers are going, what have you done? We're about to have all our funding pulled. You've completely changed the experiment. Well, what they decided to do, instead of just nixing the entire experiment altogether, they decided that they would include socialization. The socialization was being the mice were taken home and the kids played with them. They could justify socialization as qualifying as such, right? Okay, so this experiment continues. Goes on for another 8 weeks. Experiment's over. It's time to find out what our results are. We're trying to find out how exercise impacts the brain. What they found is that the hippocampus in the brains of those that exercised and had socialization were heavier. They were heavier than those that were just standalone, didn't do anything. So that was the first time that we found out that exercise impacts the brain. And let me be clear here. Exercise is not always going into the gym lifting weights. Exercise can be going out and walking to your mailbox down and back. You cannot imagine the power of walking, right? Don't discount that. I think sometimes when people get thoughts of exercise in their mind, it becomes overwhelming, and so they just don't do it. You have to do it because it impacts your brain in such a unique and great way. So now, fast forward, Naperville, Illinois. Anybody from Illinois? Are you really? Okay, so there was some research done at one of the local schools there. And there's actually a book written about it called Spark. It was, a lot of the research was done by Dr. Rady. And so what they did was there was one of the schools that was kind of off a little bit. It wasn't an affluent school by any means, but it wasn't necessarily a poor school. Kids were a little below middle of the road, had terrible test scores. In fact, they were going to shut the school down. So, and I'll find the name of the school. They were going to shut the school down. And so before they did that, one of the PE teachers said, hey, let's do this. This PE teacher was very ambitious. He had been in the teaching industry for 20, 30 years. So what his proposal was is let me take the kids in the morning and exercise and then allow them to go throughout their school day. So he brought them in and he strapped a heart rate monitor on these kids, these 8th graders, and had them go walk a mile. Now, who thinks the people that finished first were working the hardest versus people finishing in the back? It's not the case. In fact, the people that were coming in first, second, and third all the time, they weren't even challenging themselves. The people in the back that were finishing last, second to last, third to last, their heart rates were super high. We wouldn't have known that without the heart rate monitor. These kids go into school. This is long story short. There are tests done throughout the world with this organization, and what they're doing is they're testing science and math. Okay, STEAM. Yeah. Science and math, right? And what we do is we use these benchmark tests. I think it's every other year. It's 4th, 6th, 8th grade. Singapore, the UK, all over the world, these countries will subject their 8th grade age students to these tests to figure out where we're ranked, right? And of course, we know now our ranking is going down. In Naperville, Illinois, back in the late 80s, what they found is after a year of doing this, when this 8th grade class took this benchmark test, they finished 3rd in math, 1st in science. Now that is if you take it on an individual class and break it down. So what they've done now is they've taken that model and they've spread it throughout the U.S. That is the impact. In 2007, German researchers found out that if you exercise for 20 minutes before doing a memorization exercise, those people who exercised memorized those words at a 20 to 30% higher rate than those that didn't. So what have we learned? We've learned that we need to exercise. With Balance University, we work strength, posture, flexibility, and then we work on our balance so we can get our heart rate up. We can work on our leg strength, our posture, and all that good stuff. We'll get into that in just a second. That was important. Any questions on that? It was a lot to throw at you, I know. I would try to...
I didn't understand the mouse one. Doing the exercise, they weigh more?
Their brains. So what we learned is their brains are malleable. Their brains grew.
But if you're just sitting around doing nothing, the other mice, I would think they'd get heavier.
Oh, well, you're talking about fat content.
Yeah.
Okay, we're talking about brain matter.
Oh, I thought.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Yeah. No, yeah, they definitely, they probably, yeah. They were heavier, but what they did was...
Heavier, and I thought, weighs it doesn't
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. So it's important to know what's going on in the brain. Now, our vestibular system, our eyes and our ears, right? 69 people in the U.S. have suffered from vertigo at some point. Have anyone suffered from vertigo or seen anyone go through vertigo? It's awful. It's awful. I have received phone calls in early morning hours from folks that have fallen out of bed and can't move. It's really bad. And again, the vestibular system is so important to our balance. You guys recognize that whenever we closed our eyes and we started doing some of those movements. We're going to do that again. Without your eyes, Kobe Bryant, there is two ways of flying. There's instrumentation and then there's visual. If you talk to any pilot, that's what they're going to tell you. Unfortunately, Kobe Bryant, the weather was bad, and this pilot was having to fly with his instruments, right? We know the outcome. It's really difficult. There may have been other challenges there as well. So for us, when you close your eyes, you are losing your vision. So now, how are you balancing? You're having to use all the tools left available to you. Well, what are those tools? Well, they're my mechanoreceptors, my proprioceptors, and my ears, right? Well, how well do those work? You guys got a glimpse of that. Proprioceptors at the end of your nerve, at the end of your arms, the end of nerve endings, what those are is that helps you detect where you are in space and time. If you've ever known anyone that has had an amputation and they've experienced phantom limb pain, their brain is trying to connect to those proprioceptors, okay? So with the combination of those systems, we're able to keep our balance. Leg strength, this to me is the most important by far. That is the key to all of your independence and all of your mobility. One of the first things I do when I walk into a home is I introduce myself if I'm meeting with someone is, does the individual get up and come shake my hand? Do they stay in the chair? Where's their leg strength? That's important because leg strength is so important and impacts everything. If you can't stand for more than 30 seconds, how are you going to do cardiovascular exercise, right? Not only that, like I said, we're going to talk about some uncomfortable things. As we get older, we tend to have to take or find the need to take more medications. We call that polypharmacy. Some of that can cause constipation, right? The more we sit, the worse it gets. Whenever we walk and we stand, some of you may have noticed this, gravity pulls things down, right? Just saying. Keep that in mind, because what's one of the first things a dog does when they go outside? They're walking and running around. They'll go to the bathroom. Well, think about it. If I'm walking all day, all that blood is circulating. It acts as lubrication, but you know what else it's pulling? It's pulling things down. You get where I'm going? Don't make me say it. I'm going to stop right there. But you get what I'm saying. But with weak legs, if you can't stand for more than 30, 40 seconds or a minute at a time or a couple minutes at a time, this is going to be a big problem, and there's going to be a multitude of problems that come with that, not just your balance. All right, does that make sense? Okay. VO2 max, that's just a stress test. These are 3 life indicators that I have up here. I just like to share this with people. VO2 max is just, if you're at rest, and I were to have you guys and we were to go run to target and run back, how long would it take for your heart rate to come back to where it is now, right? The longer it takes, the worse shape your heart is in, okay? And then the ability to add lean muscle tissue. Of course, as we age, that gets harder. We all have testosterone in our bodies. Of course, men, we have a considerable amount more. And for those men that are going to the testosterone clinics, you have even more than that. There's one on every corner. So, which is a good thing. If you don't have hormonal balance in the body, it's really hard to do anything else, Any questions so far? You guys following me? Okay. So, how do I improve my balance, Chris? You've talked a lot of stuff. 4 pillars of balance. I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to be completely honest with you, your vision and your hearing are key. Your eyes and ears are probably number 1. I'm going to be honest, all right? Now, if that is 1A, the vestibular system, 1B is going to be strength, posture, flexibility, and of course, balance. Let's look at strength. How many of you watch TV? Busted. Okay. So let me have you stand. If you would like, of course, you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but let me have you stand. I want you to stand in front of your chair. There is what I call the plop. And the plop occurs when you get down, and I'm almost there, but, got it. That is the plop. This is a no plop zone. This area right here is a no plop zone. So when you sit down, I want you to land softly. That's going to give us an indication of how strong those glutes and hamstrings are. Besides, research shows that if we do this eccentric contraction, we stimulate more muscle tissue. So it's more pennies on the dollar, okay? So we're going to take our feet chair leg width apart. All right, we're going to start with our knees bent, our core is tight, our shoulders are back, our head is up, our mouths are smiling. Bottom out, 4 seconds. When we hit 1, that's when you want to touch the bottom of the chair. Ready? 4, 3, slowly, 2, don't get ahead. 2, 1, nice and easy, and we're up. Good, 99 more. Yeah, I've been told my watch is broken many times. 4, 3, stick your bottom out, shift your weight to your heel. 2, nice and slow, and 1. Good. One more time for good luck. Lottery's at 1.1 billion. I could use $100 million. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Now, I did a lecture here last year, and I told the class to do this. I also told them, find places where you can do this. I mean, don't be weird about it, but, if you're going to sit down in a movie theater, the lights are off, sit slow. Think about all those extra times you can gain strength. So about 6 months later, one of the guys that was in the lecture come in and he goes, oh my gosh, I just have to tell you, that's one of the best exercises I can do. In church, I started sitting slow in the pew, and the lady next to me after a little while asked me, was like, good grief, what are you doing? He goes, no, I'm doing this to help my balance and make me stronger. And then his wife was standing right there, and she rolls her eyes, and before he could get any more of the story out, she goes, yeah, he's got the whole pew doing it. So now the whole pew in church sits down slow. It's perfect. I was like, can you get a video of that? But that is a great way to build your leg strength, all right? What I would suggest is you do that a series of 8 times. If you can do that a couple of times a day, it's going to pay dividends for you, all right? Now let's look at our posture. Why is posture important to our balance? Our balance center of mass with proper posture is just above our navel, about 2 inches back. Most of us, right? My posture changes. What does that do to my center of mass? It changes it. Now I have muscles that are going to have to be overactive. I'm going to have muscles now that are not doing their job. That's going to be underactive. It's going to create a lot of issues. So the way that changes, that posture, is I get over my toes or get over my skis. And there's some cognitive issues too that come along with that. When you start to see people, they're getting over their skis, there's some stuff going on. Now, we live in a world where everything's in front of us. We drive, we sit, we read, we're on our phones. In fact, we're seeing some issues with the younger kids. They're losing that lordotic curve in their spine because they're looking down so much. All right? So what we want to do is we want to undo all of that. If all these shoulders are coming together, everything's tightening up right here. So we need to stretch that out. Not only that, but we need to strengthen the muscle. Can I borrow you for a second? No, you're good. You don't even have to move. We need to strengthen these muscles back here in our posterior delt and those traps there, because when we add muscle, right? How many of you have heard muscle's heavy? Muscle's going to pull those shoulders back and act as an anchor. So let me have you stand. All right? Now, what I want you to do is we're going to find what's called our balanced position of confidence. All right? And so what I'll have you do, I tell you what, let's go ahead and go behind our chair there. Let's go behind our chair. Let's do it the right way. I would like everyone to face this direction, face towards me. All right? So what we're going to do is we're going to put our right foot forward. You're going to put your right foot forward, off to the side a bit. All right? Right foot forward. What I want you to do is find a position where you're 90% confident in your balance. If you don't, I want you to change. So all of our feet, our positions are going to look different. Some of us may be closer, some of us may be further apart, but I want you to be confident in this position. Once you get your bearings, I want you to take that hand off that chair. This is the test. If you feel unsteady here, move your feet. Find a position where you can be stable, because we're about to add a variable. Now, if you feel confident, I want you to take your hands out in front of you, turn your palms to the sky, go straight out in front of you, palms to the sky, and what I want you to do is I want you to open up. Try not to poke anybody. And I want you to push back, push back, push back, stretch that chest, and come back, touch your pinkies together. Good. And again, 2. That's it. And again, 3. And 4. Good. And 5. That's it. 6. Good. 7. Last one. 8. And rest. You feel those shoulders working? So now what we'll do is we'll turn around and face the other direction, and this time our left foot will be forward. Now, I will tell you now that we all have one foot that we're better balancing on than another. Does anyone know why? No, I don't know. I was asking. Does anybody know why? So, that's what you think. You're right, right. Well, yes, that's typically what it is. Pay attention to people when they talk in casual conversation today, okay? Again, don't be weird about it. Don't get me in trouble. But watch people when they're in casual conversation. Very few people will split their weight evenly 50-50. Most of the time, when you see your friends, when they talk, they'll shift their weight and they'll talk just like that. So let's say I have 80%, 70% of my body weight on this foot. If I were to lift my foot up and give it the other 20 to 30, it's not that big of a jump. Think about all the memory my brain has in this position as well. But if I were to go the other way, that's a bigger jump. So now with your left foot forward, this may be a different looking position than with your right foot forward, okay? So again, find that position you're comfortable. Left foot forward, we're going to take our hands up in front of us. Pinkies touching, we're going to open, push back, stretch that chest out. Stay forward though, don't lean back and come together. And 2. Good. And 3. That's it. 4. Good. 5. That's it. 6. 2 more. 7. Last one. And 8. Good. And rest. Go ahead and have a seat for me. Almost done. Could you feel a little bit of that instability entering into that movement? It's just a little. And for some of us, it may not have been much at all. But that little bit of instability, we're starting to create that memory, learning where our body needs to position itself. Now that we've done those exercises, strength, posture, and flexibility, balance is the 4th core, 4th pillar. In class, you would do 2 strength exercises, 2 posture, 2 flexibility before you even get to the balance part of it. Sorry. The reason we do that is because we want to get the heart rate up, the core temperature up, and we want to get that BDNF present in the brain. Now that we have it there, remember what the German researchers told us? Now we hit our language, the balance language. Does that make sense? You guys buy that? How many of you woke up this morning? Raise your hand. Should be all of us. What I want you to do when you wake up tomorrow, right, is I want you to scoot your bottom, and you don't have to do this. You can do this at any time of the day. Try to sit against a wall. I want you to move your rear end all the way back if you can. All right, so we're going to come all the way back and try to put your back and your waist against the wall there. And then reach forward and try to touch your toes. All right, it's a lot harder than you think. When you watch TV, you can take your right leg out in front of you. Both hands slide down that right leg and stretch that leg. The reason that is important, that our muscles move through the range of motion they're required to move through, is for a healthy gait pattern. That's it. Right foot forward. We're sitting at the kind of the middle of our chair. Right foot forward. We're just going to slide down. That's it. And you're going to hold that for about 15 seconds. You don't want to bounce. It's okay if your toes pointing up or pointing out. That's all right. Good. And 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And relax. Good. And then you'll do the other side. And this is something simple that you can do at home while you're watching TV. You're watching the Cowboys. You're not a Bills fan, are you?
Buffalo.
Buffalo, Bears. Man, you guys are in the same boat we're in. And relax. Good, good, good. Now, the balance part. Okay, let me have you stand and let's go behind our chairs. What we're going to do is we'll face our typical direction, facing this way. One of the best, easiest exercises, one of those exercises you're going to get a lot of pennies on the dollar, is you'll shift your weight to your right foot and you're simply going to bring that foot out and bring it back in. Now when you do that, you want to keep your right knee slightly bent. Your chest up, chin up, and I want you finding a focal point out in front of you. It's very natural. It feels natural. A lot of folks want to look down at the ground. Try not to do that. Try to find something in front of you and focus on it. Nice and tall, you're just going to move the foot out and then right back in, but at a nice smooth pace. You want to keep a nice neutral spine. You don't want any lateral flexion there. You're just going out and in. Now, if you can keep your foot in the air, right? If you can keep that left foot in the air, that's the goal. That's the aim. However, if you can't, and it impacts the integrity of the movement, put the foot down every time. Shift, lift, and down. All right? Because remember, Whatever we do, and relax. Let's turn and face the other way. Whatever we do, that's what our brain is going to memorize. So if you're doing it inefficiently, that's what the brain is going to memorize. So it's better to put the foot on the ground. Does that make sense? Okay, same thing. You're going to shift your weight to the left foot, and you're going to go out and in. Nice and slow. Move at your own pace. Sometimes it helps to look a little to the left. Maybe your focal point shouldn't be in front of you. Maybe it should be to the left a little bit. If you're having trouble keeping that foot in the air, go ahead and hang on to that chair if you need to. Good. That's it. We'll do 3, 2, and 1. And rest. That's an exercise you can do, like men, when you're cooking for your wives or your significant other and you're standing there in front of the microwave and that number's counting down, you can sit there and do that. Get a good 30 seconds, right? You guys don't use the microwaves to cook for your wives, do you? No, of course not. All right. All right, guys, back to your chair. Let's wrap it up. Any questions? Threw a lot at you. So,
when you're doing these exercises, should you have sneakers on or be barefoot?
Barefoot. Yeah. I hope that I was able to convey the importance of that BDNF and the science and the research that went behind this. You can go to my website, mybalanceuniversity.com. All the sources and references are available there, all the research that's gone in there. You can go to our YouTube channel, and it's under Emeritus Health. Just go to YouTube, type in Emeritus Health. You'll see my face. It'll be there. And then you can go to that channel. There's over 200 videos. So any issue you've ever come across with balance, chances are is that it's there. So Emeritus Health on YouTube. And then any lecture we've ever given, I post the references and sources. So the actual notes that I use in my classes, I'm giving that lecture, I post them online. All right. All that evidence and research is available online, right? Completely transparent. A lot of times you're not going to hear balance talk like this, but this is the way to improve your balance. This is the way you're going to get real dividends. And I will tell you this, you have to be consistent. You have to be consistent. All right. Parkinson's, neuropathy, Alzheimer's, neurological diseases can impact your ability. There's ways around it. We learned the brain is malleable. So this Balance University can actually help prolong the inevitable. Unfortunately, we don't have any cures for those things yet. But this exercise, Balance University, can prolong the impacts. I've seen it firsthand with someone who was committed, and it does work. All right. Consistency is key. Your position of confidence, right? That's how we start. We memorize. That's our entry point. 1% of your time, 10,080 minutes in a week. All right? We just need 1% of your time. That comes out to be about 30 minutes every other day. 30 minutes. You don't even need that much, guys. These exercises I've shown you take you 10 minutes to do it. If you do it every day, you'll improve your balance. All right? Questions and answers, you can sign up for our newsletter. Just text 22828. Text Emeritus Health to that number, and you can join our newsletter. I do not send out a lot of newsletters, just when we post blogs. I try to post a couple of blogs each month. Good. And you'll get a list of where our classes are, schedules and things like that. We are teaching online and in-person classes at FGCU. They have a satellite location in Naples, is where the in-person class is. I teach the class. So if you're interested in coming to a Balance University class, that's the only one we're doing right now. So it's not too bad. I think it's about $40, $40 to $50 for 3 or 4 classes. Yeah, it's not too bad. No, sir, you can do it online through Zoom, or if you're living in Naples, you can come to our location in Naples. The physical location is in Naples. I set up a camera that goes out to people that are wherever they are in the country. You know, we have people from all over. So, all right, help us spread the word. You can like us on Facebook, Google, we're on Twitter, guys. So thank you very much. I'll be here if you have any questions. I certainly appreciate it, and I'll see if I can get anything. What is? There you go. Beautiful. My uncle told me a long time ago, he said, the mind can only take what the rear end can handle, so don't talk too long. Great advice. Thanks for coming. We'll see you guys next week. You bet. Thank you.
Yeah, so I tried my best to get my